Uhuru, welcome to the breakdown. Um, Being brought to you by the African National Women's Organization, a mass organization under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party. The breakdown is a monthly news, analysis, and opinion program, as well as a platform for highlighting guests whose issues spotlight the international plight of colonized women struggling against colonialism. My name is Coco Lewis. I will be your MC for today's broadcast. I am joined by the host, Yejide Oramila, president of the African National Women's Organization, and Jay Amiche. Today's breakdown, we'll be talking with Sheila Silva, a educator living in Germany, born in Brazil. We are streaming live on the YouTube channels for Burning Spear TV and the annual Women's African National Women's Organization, Facebook, and X. Uhuru, President Yejide, and Jay. I'm excited about today's discussion.
My side is just like, I want to get in there. So I got to turn Sheila on.
Yes.
Hey, okay.
Huru, comrade.
Welcome, everyone, to the breakdown, which Comrade Coco announces our monthly news and analysis. And it's a little bit different than what we've done in the past. The last, like a few shows where we've had all of us on, it's really going to be an interview with Comrade Jay. Comrade Sheila Silva, who is African woman educator, activist, writer, film producer, based in Germany, African woman that was born in Brazil. And this discussion is really going to be, generally speaking, about what her experiences are living in these places, and how what the political scope is for African people living in these places, because we know that sometimes people are here when they should be here. So Comrade Sheila, welcome. Thank you for joining the breakdown.
I'm excited. I'm going to hop off and enjoy the show with everyone else.
Okay, great. Oh, we've been having some issues, but here we go, Sheila.
Yeah.
Welcome to the breakdown. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Yes, in Germany. Here for me, it's 8 p.m. Yes, we are 6 hours ahead. Yes.
Okay.
And I'm very happy to be here to contribute, to bring, the point of view. Being African, born in Brazil, my ancestors were displaced there and live in Germany. I've been here for 12 years. Yes.
Comrade Sheila has been volunteered with the Burning Spear newspaper as a copy editor, and she was also on our panel at our Black Women's Convention, African Women's Convention this past March, and really gave a great perspective to our audience, and we had to invite her back. She's also a new annual member, and we look forward to her contributions. But I'll open up the discussion here. Is there, this just jumps right into it. So just give me a general description about the differences between living in Brazil and the difference of living in Germany, and just kind of describe how that links to the colonial question.
Okay, so I always like starting with the background, the historical background from Brazil. Yes, the Brazil was the first place what we know today as Brazil, a colonial name. It was the first nation that started with the enslaved of Africans, yes, and the last one to abolish it. I don't like to use this word, but officially to abolish it, and it was in 1888. And it's very interesting because 2 weeks ago on 13th May, they celebrate the day of the abolishment of slavery in Brazil. Yes, and the background is 136 years we are so-called free. As an experience, I'm the third generation outside of bondage. Yes, my great mother, she was born on a plantation. I was in Brazil in March, and I had the opportunity to have her birth certificate, and it's something. So she got that when she was 8 years old, the first time that got her birth certificate, and that is just the name of her mother. We even don't know if the lady was her mother. No father, no grandparents. The information.
Got a little of a connection issue. So I'm gonna talk while we can get Comrade Sheila back connected. But I was really looking looking into this story, and actually I had known that Brazil was the last place to abolish slavery. That's very interesting, and that's where most of the Africans that were taken off of the continent of Africa were shipped first to Brazil, and then from Brazil was shipped to other places in the so-called Americas. Um, so we gotta see what we can do about getting Comrade Sheila back on. Um, yep, she's gonna log back in. Here we go.
Okay, now
Okay, please continue. And
back.
this might happen throughout the program because we've been
Okay,
experiencing.
no problem. I don't know. I was talking about the process, yes. The end of abolishment of slavery, the process of industrialization in Brazil that started in the 1930s, and the government they invited white Europeans and Japanese people to take over the land, the job that African people could do. So we are paying until today, and yes, this is the situation how it is. The African people in general there, they are living terrible situations. They just have service and jobs. They live in the places what we call slums. In Brazil, we use the term favelas when you say, or the neighborhoods are depleted. They don't have any infrastructure. Women normally the jobs that they have is like nannies or domestic worker. Yes, the just 10 years ago they were able at least to have a contract because they were treated like enslaved women. Yes, no rights, anything, getting a very low salary. And this is the situation that we have in Brazil today. Police brutality against African men, also women, a lot of homeless children, women, men live on the street. And when we have, for example, in this time of the COVID, of course, the first that goes to the street, they lose their jobs, they die. They are the African people. Yes, this is the general situation. And being Germany, okay, they don't have to deal with the I would say the problems that, for example, that they people have in England or in France, where the African population is huge, because
Mhm.
it's not a country connected with immigration, or they are also colonizer, but their history is not like in France or in England, for example. The most of African people who are here, when they come from the continent, they came with a status of refugees.
Mhm.
Yes, or they are a part of the African bourgeoisie, that they came as diplomatic people, and they work with the system because they are receiving money for that. But the most of the part of the people who came as refugee, they are the second generation here, and they suffer with the problem of the colonialism that we suffer everywhere, discrimination, to rent apartments, for example, through their surnames. Here it's very difficult to find an apartment if you are yes, if you have a certain surnames, if they don't see your face, you have another problem. But you have a certain surnames, you not have an opportunity to have a apartment to live, for example. Yes, this is the problem. And of course, also people who are trying to come as refugee to Germany, where they have resource because they exploit other countries. Yes, the continent of Africa, they are the main. This is the political and financial power of Europe. Is
Mhm.
Germany here with England and France? They are the exploiters today, controlling the most of resources around the world with the United States. Yes, Germany and the United States, they work together. The Germans, they are the first partner of the United States, and now we are here in Germany. It is the time of European elections for the European Parliament. Yes, and this parliament is in France, in a city called Strasbourg. And there is, once I was there, I just saw here is where they deal with our lives. And this is
Mm.
the symbol of the 21st Berlin Conference. Yes, 21st century Berlin Conference. This is where they take the decisions to exploit, to oppress, to abuse us, to steal our resource, to bring to the continent. And after that, they don't want to receive any refugees. And African people, they are the first to die when
Mhm.
they try to enter to the continent. Yes, because they are treated like, you would use the word trash. Yes, this is, they destroy our environment, they destroy our country, they exploited us, and when we try to come to get back what we need because they have stolen, they try to put us out. Yes, with different
Let's
kind
talk.
of policies.
Let's talk about what you. I have a couple questions. So, like,
Hmm.
the let's start with the most recent and then go backwards. So, when you say that the 21st century um, uh, Berlin
Berlin
Conference,
Conference.
what exactly do you mean by that in terms of just like what have you seen that would indicate, you know, that correlation?
Yes, they come together. They have this European Union. Yes, this is how they act together. They are not they are independent, but they came together to control the world better. And it started in the past 200 years ago. And
Mhm.
they keep doing that, coming together. And we have the elections now, right now, for the European Parliament. And this
Mhm.
is again, they have their own institutions in France. This is the parliament where things happen, and they come together to take the decision about the African people and other oppressed people around the world, how they will take their our
Research.
resource, how
Mhm.
they will finance wars, yes, and everything is going on today, 2024, like
Mhm.
European Parliament to take care of us, European, our safety, our security, our money, and everything. But we know how they keep doing things, yes.
Yeah. How do you think, so you're in Germany and maybe you want to share why you're in Germany, but there might be some people like if you don't like it, get it, move or leave or do all these other kinds of things. How do you respond to that? Because we get that here. Go back to Africa if you don't like United Snakes of America.
Oh, this is the question, of course, yes. My answer is I'm just here to get back what I deserve and what is belongs to me. I don't give any other. This is my mantra. This is when they start with that. I'm just here to take back what is my thing. Yes, you are the heirs. You brought, and I was involved in the politics to a certain point. I love history. I read. I can read German very well. I can speak German, and it's very easy. And Germany specifically, all institutions that they have, all companies that they have, you can trace to the 19th century. This is when they
Mm,
started. Yes,
mm,
and the connection is very easy to see. All companies that they have here, that they are bring money to the country and everything is connected. And if you open a book and you understand about the world history, how they got these resources. We are in a place they have no resource, no minerals, no anything. Yes, they don't have.
right, right,
They
right.
don't have. It's something like 1 + 1 is 2. And once we
Mm,
start to connect that and understand about history, we start to connect where they receive the resource, who produced the raw materials for them to process here in that time to make a lot of money. Yes, so it's easy. It was the Americans exploiting Africa and other countries around the world. Yes.
what do you think is gonna liberate Brazil, if that's even a concept, right? But what do you think? What do you think of some of the? Because I'm
Today,
interested. I'm interested in
boy,
Brazil's
what I
presence
really
where African
think.
people are. Yeah, I'm interested in that because that's what African people are, and so there's so much stuff that's going on in Brazil politically, all the things that you said, and there might be groups that are operating in the country. But what are you seeing as a challenge and to freedom? Not just for in Brazil, but just generally speaking, the general mindset of all Brazilians, right?
I also like to share. I also want to speak about the African liberation there, because we are truly the majority of the country, and today, until today, we don't have any political party to represent us. Although we are a numerical majority. Today, the problem that we have, it's a huge problem, and it was the foundation of the country to bring people to an understanding that we are a nation, and through the process of assimilation, miscegenation, and everything, is to get people to understand their identity. Yes,
Mm.
there is a huge discussion about who is. They use the word Negro, that is equal to black, and today, the huge discussion is to define who is black or not, because this topic, once they understand that, you will be able to unite and really to fight against the system, because it's what we should fight against the system. But just this discussion, who is black, I will use this word, people who are mixed, or the African people who have the appearance and as African, and this discussion is that, and they have an understanding. What I also can understand, that poverty is connected with blackness to a certain point.
Yeah.
It is, but they push the problem of poverty that will involve the hairs of the colonizers. They are also colonizers.
Waiting to see if she can just pop back in. So we got the frozen again. But I think that's really important what she's saying. I mean, that's something that's not like different from what we have experienced here. And one of the things that we had talked about offline, I'm going to wait till I don't know if she can hear me. And if somebody just pop into chat that she's frozen again, maybe she can see that. That, we've seen this revolutionary identity change, right? Like for us, it was the Black Power movement of the 1970s that said that Black is beautiful, Black Power, and then starting pushing you to um, look at your hair, your skin as beautiful, and these are the things that kind of help people to understand themselves. So you stopped or you froze around the question of identity, and so I just wanted you to continue.
Yes, and it's the identity to come to a common sense that our problem is against the colonizer, colonialism, that the white colonizers, although some of them are poor, in the end of the day, they have the way to access certain resources because they are white. And yes, and we who are African people, African descent, we don't have. And this is this point for people to understand that. And the only possibility that they see, it's not to fight for self-determination, is to go into the system
Yeah.
operating with the white leftists who are
Mhm.
controlling the country today, and they have some tokens who will put to certain places there to speak for African people. But the fight is not for self-determination; is to maintain the system, to try to maintain the system, not to fight for self-determination. This is the
What do
problem
you
that we
think
have there.
is the in the question of like identity when people are trying to figure out who they are, right? Like, are they
Mhm.
black? Are they mixed? Or how much black are they? Like, is that I feel like in South America that people are becoming more cognizant and proud of their blackness. But in Brazil, you're saying that blackness, Africanness is correlated with poverty. What kind of implications does that have with really having um, you know, helping African people understand who they are if they don't want to be associated with poverty, poorness, all of these things? And as we wait for the response to that answer, we will I'm sorry, y'all. Like, we didn't test the connection and everything. But we're gonna make this show happen. And sometimes when you deal with the colonizer, you gotta deal with the colonizer internet. And sometimes in some places it's good and other places it's bad. So we're gonna wait till Comrade Sheila comes back in. But I've never been to Brazil before, but I have seen, movies and things that talk about the lives of Africans in the favelas and the conditions that Africans live in there. And also what happens when you have carnival that comes into Brazil and Rio and other places, and what that means for African people, who are particularly the people who she said is homeless on the street, and what that means for like cleaning up the street so that you can have all of this tourist money that comes in. And I think what I was saying before is, it's like when she and I were talking previously around the question of African people in South America, that there's this expectation that we had the Black Power movement that helped us recognize who our identity is. That was really helped us to shape ourselves politically. After the Black Power movement, people had African names, even if they were made up names. Um, um, but yeah, these were things that really helped shape who we are. Go ahead, Sheila. I'm gonna let you pick up from where you are.
So about identity and think people think they are beautiful. This is a discussion that they've started in Brazil specifically in 2012. When once I left, they start to speak more about that. Also, the focus is the hair, because in South America in general, the access that you have and the way you escape your Africanity or blackness is through your hair. Normally, it's not just about the
Here too.
skin. Okay, once you have what we call good hair,
Yeah.
you have one step to to run away about what's meant to be an African.
Yeah.
And they are on the level to for me it's really what I understand, or how I see the situation today. The discussion that they have is that is very superficial. It's about the hair. It's like the time, the 60s in the United States. This is what I like to bring, to highlight. Yes, black's beautiful, leave your hair how it is, but also there is something they prefer. Is not our African hair. They are the one who are mixing. They have this curly hair or this kind of thing. So people, they have more access to play certain roles in TV series, what we call soap opera there, or to participate in reality shows, to be on TV and advertisement. It's much more about this in Brazil today. It's a kind of integration, not economically,
Mm-hmm.
but about, okay, we are African, we are accepting our the Africans who are here, but what they don't use also this word. Normally they use black, negro, or
Mm-hmm.
something like that, but it's much more on a superficial, trying to make people feel proud about their ancestry, but on a superficial way. Yes, just about the appearance. You have to accept yourself and this kind of thing, not deeper than that. Today this is the discussion. And of course, who is, and also in the end of the day, a fight against the mixed people who deal with their own problems. And African people, sometimes they are against, because people say, yeah, we never got anything, and now these mixed people, they are saying they are Africans and they are taking our place. Is a huge discussion. Yes.
Oh wow.
And it's because of the foundation of the country, the politics that you had in the United States, the segregation by law. Yes, we also have their segregation, economic, political, and everything, but they created in the social or consciousness, a thing called racial democracy. It doesn't matter your color, your ancestry. We are all Brazilians. They use also this nationality. Yes. And all people are equal. We are mixed. Yes, all
Mm-hmm.
white people. They use a term that all white people here, they have a foot in the kitchen, meaning our ancestor who worked, yes, as cookers. And this is the term that they use. Yes, this discussion make no sense. You are trying to separate the society. And some, these mixed people, some of them, they say, I'm everything and I cannot deny one part. You are trying to do here like people in the United States. We are not in the United States. This is the discussion. Yeah, it's a very superficial discussion, because people are broken and they don't understand. Yes, and
Mm.
this started with the foundation of the country as racial democracy. If people are mixed, of course, they had a politic because of that. They invited Europeans to go to Brazil to make the country white, like we have Argentina today. Yes, what they achieved in Argentina, and it was the plan, it was the politic, because Brazil imported the most of the Africans. In the end of the day, when they abolished the slavery, there were a lot of Africans there, and they start to invite the Germans. Yes, in a part of the country, they gave a complete area, the south of the country,
To Germany. So while Sheila comes back in after being frozen, we'll continue what she was saying in terms of like the Brazilian government giving the southern part of Brazil to Germany and what implications that had. It's very interesting what she was saying about the whole question of mixed race African people, and I'm gonna say it just like that. And I've heard that term before where people's like, "Oh, you're trying to make us like the United States, where one drop does not mean that I'm black and I can be everything, and I'm honoring my white ancestry, my native ancestry, and all these things. Like when we call ourselves African, because we are in the United States, it's a political question. And if you are of African descent, that the political question that I think mixed race people are not really understanding is that you have to make a political statement with your identity, and not doing that by saying I'm everything. You're also acknowledge that's the political statement. That's also saying that you acknowledge and accept the colonial reality of how you came to be, which is miscegenation, enslavement, all of these other kind of things. And what the colonizer often do too is they sell you a story of like love stories between African enslaved people and white people, and they've done it here. Like in my daughter's old college, when I went on a tour, they call it a love story
sorry, they say that.
of enslaved African people who were in love or had relationships with the white oppressor, and this is how they frame it to make you feel like that's part of a history that you should take in with pride. And that
Embrace,
that
yeah.
that is ridiculous. Sheila, when you left us, you were talking about how Brazil gave the bottom part of the country to Germany. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Oh yes, I don't say to Germany, but to German people who was fleeing
Okay.
Germany. Yes, in the 18 something, when they had their wars here, their civil wars, it was
Mhm.
the political sentiment of Brazil. We want to make the country white. Yes, in 100 years, it was a political statement, and so they start to invite Europeans to come to Brazil, and they got land there, money, the access to
We can imagine that there was access to everything. um,
part of the bourgeoisie. The Germans, I mean, are the, this is the most racist area of Brazil, and it's very interesting because last week they have a lot of climate problem. Yes, with flooding and everything. And for example, it's the area I was born in Brazil, and I never knew that we have an African population there. Yes, because they sell this area as the white area, German ancestry, of course, German finance, certain things there. And of course, who is suffering? The African people. They lost everything. There is no, and they are highlighting a lot what happened there because the white population is living there. These German people, I would say, yes. And this is an area with three or four states where they dominated, where African people, when they are there, they are very mistreated. They have no access to anything. I used to say it's like the Mississippi in the United States in the 20s. Yes, it's the same in the same way. They are very aggressive. And if African people, they don't have any opportunity nowhere in the country, in these areas where they are, it's even more difficult. Yes, and it was the plan of the government when they invited these people to the country in this period of industrialization in Brazil. The industrialization was not in the north, it was in the south. Yes,
Mhm.
also in this area where I came from Sao Paulo. And in this period, they start to invite a lot of Europeans, poor Europeans, to start their lives there. Of course, getting land, grants, access to universities so they could prepare the land. And they are the ones who, maybe in the third generation, the generation that I am, because I know certain people, they are the bourgeoisie oppressing us, yes. And we depend on them to get jobs and everything, and we don't have any access.
I think that's what I mean, we can see similarities all throughout the world in terms of colonialism. And in the United States, they also, say, come with your weary, you're tired, you're broken, and settle the land, despite the fact that there were people already here. And to make this country white and also fight against the native people who are here, and of course partake. The poorest of the poor Europeans came
Yes.
here because because they had no future in Europe. In Europe, they were feudal serfs who could not make it out of a social class, and this was the future for them by colonizing and participating in the settlement of lands. And so what you're talking about is very, is definitely similar to the role of white people, because back then Brazil was controlled by white people.
Well, of course, yes, of course, yes.
To dominate and oppress. I had a question for you about the class perspective here in Germany and in Brazil. Is there a difference between the African petty bourgeoisie in Germany and the African petty bourgeoisie in Brazil? If so, what are they? And if not, you can explain that as well.
Okay, so historically, we don't have African black bourgeoisie in Brazil in the way that you had the United States. Yes, this is the way that we can compare so people can understand. Of course, maybe in that time of the enslavement, the mixed children of slave owners, they left their children something, but a organized black bourgeoisie historically don't have. Yes, through this history also. Is something that they are starting this process right now. Okay, for 12 years ago.
See if she pops back.
Affirmative through affirmative actions in 2012 to give access to African people to public universities normally controlled by white folks. Their children, they are the ones who goes to this university. They are like Harvard or Wales, but they are public. And African people, they start to have a certain kind of access, and what it means. Okay, if you go to this university, you get jobs or something like that. And through this, I'm Black and Proud, what they are. Certain. Okay, I will. TV, for example,
No,
they are gatekeepers. I would say in general, black great gatekeepers. They can get their paycheck, yes, but they don't control anything. They don't build. Okay, so some of them they invest maybe in these so-called favelas to certain programs, but it's not something that will liberate African people. That will put them in a situation that they can be self-determined. It's not. They are trying to establish that in a way. I don't want to use the word use these people like a token, because they know what they are doing. They just want to have their paycheck and live their nice lives. Also come to Europe, or make posts on Instagram or something like that. So I arrive there where I want to arrive. Yes, but we don't have historically a bourgeoisie with black institutions. We never had a black bank or black schools, or we don't have this opportunity to have our Afrocentric schools or something like that. Homeschooling, what would help us, we don't have that. The state, the white folks, they control everything. We don't have this historically. And here in Germany, so the African population is a very small population, 1% of the population. They started with the census 2 years ago to try to see the situation of the African people specifically here, and things that people deal and complain. It's about the racism at school, or people talking, or police brutality to a certain point. It's very difficult to compare, because the police brutality, what they call here, is not something that we experience in the Americas. It's totally different, yes. And this is much more than complaint or black feminists. it's also, in my opinion, very superficial, the what they talk here, very based on the United States, also much more these mainstream authors like Angela Davis, Audre Lorde. I'm not saying they were not important for the history of the country, but the level of the discussions here is not about systemic things. It's
Mhm.
not here because the population is also small, less than 1% of the whole population, and because of the history of Germany with colonialism is not the same like other colonizer countries. Yes, so they don't have to deal with a lot of folks coming as previous colonies. Yes, although they had colonies in Africa where they
Mhm.
control certain countries, Namibia, for example, but this is not the same situation. We cannot compare.
Let's talk about because you mentioned it, and let's talk about the African feminists in these places as a way to kind of influence or raise up issues that may be experienced by African people in Germany. Because what we've seen, and you're frozen if you can hear me, Sheila. So we'll just see. I'll keep talking until you can jump back in. But what we've seen in Europe and in South America in particular is African feminists dominating the landscape of issues when it comes to women. And just like you were explaining how the African petty bourgeoisie gets created through the higher education, that's how feminists are also born, is through the higher education. So you start to build up the African petty bourgeoisie and have them split off in certain sectors. So when you mentioned the feminists, what are some of the contradictions that they're? Let's talk about feminism and how it actually plays out in Europe and in Germany in particular where you live. And I know that there's a growing movement of feminist thought in South America too, and in Brazil. So like, how do you see these things playing out in both places?
In Brazil, this is how you describe perfectly after Africans starting access the universe, the public ones. Yes, the only thing that they allowed us when they start to speak about race, because it's a global discussion in the end of the day, because social media and everything, they allow certain things. So the point there for discussion when they talk about race is about that is a term, decolonize theories, also from it started with South America white folks when they
Okay.
speak about the colonizing things, the colonized thoughts, the colonized everything. This is the base,
Mhm.
and also feminism, black feminism, because it's the fact that women, they face certain things, yes, that they don't access certain things. As I explained before, African women, they are doing certain kind of jobs like maids, nannies, and something like that. They have no rights. There are violence and a lot of things, but people, they don't understand that colonialism is the problem. Yes, our men, they face also a lot of problems, and for me it's very difficult. I never was involved with these groups because I came from a family with a lot of men. Yes, so I have just two brothers, cousins. In my generation, I grew up with a lot of cousins. My mother, she had four brothers, so I grew up in an environment of men. Some of them, they had their problems, but in the end of the day, we are very united. I never suffered with abuse or this kind of thing. I know certain women, they suffer with that, but the discussion must be brighter. If we go to this way of this gender war, oh, because black men, they are just sleeping with white women, I really don't like to participate in that, because I like to discuss about politics, how we can improve our lives together, so we
Mhm.
can build families, health families together. Yes, because if we go into this politics that they trying to divide us, we are not getting anywhere. This is what they do with us, put us against each other through skin complexion, through ethnicities or something. We have to improve our ways. Yes, and when they allowed us, the people that they give the opportunity to speak, they are connected with black feminists. There is a very known lady there, she started speaking about Black feminists bringing these authors from the United States, because they criticize the United States as an imperialistic country, what it is, that African people, although they are a part of an imperialistic country, they are also imperialist to a certain point, can be, but they also use your authors to speak about the problem that we face. So I think the cognitive dissonance about that. And yes, it's crazy. And when they bring, this is what they allow to discuss. They are these folks that in the United States they are not in anymore. The discussion is on another level. Yes,
Mhm,
and you are
mhm.
trying to bring people together in a there are groups, they call
Pan-Africanism. Yeah. You're frozen, Sheila. So yeah, that just when you log back in, we're gonna come back at that point around Pan Africanism and the idea of bringing African people together. Where I believe you were trying to make a correlation with what's happening in Brazil, where people are talking about these
prove
things.
that.
Go ahead, Sheila,
Yes,
please.
they have to, we have to improve that. But what I also understand, it's not, I don't want just to criticize, at least Brazil, German is another thing, because we don't have access to the language, what is very difficult. Yes, the most of people, they don't have the way to learn English. We have to pay. Our public school system is horrible, and if you want to learn another language, you have to pay what's expensive. And African people normally don't have the resource to do that. We work to survive, yes, to pay our small bills, to eat, yes, because food is also very expensive in Brazil, and we don't own any company that we can publish books. Yes, so we depend on these white colonizers to translate things. Then will just translate and give access to us, because they control the institutions, they control these universities. And although they have to bring certain topics to be discussed, they will allow certain kind of things. Yes, certain kind of literature. They will not allow African internationalists, for example. Yes, they will never bring that to the public universe to people know and discuss. Yeah.
I like how you frame the Brazilian ecosystem as they allow us, they
Yes.
manage us
Yes.
when they
And
allow
it
us
is. Yeah.
to.
And it is, unfortunately, and what people don't understand, because we think that once we access certain place, this discussion. What I feel also dealing with some African Brazilians here in Europe, when they start to discuss about race, what I understand, because we have also this class, what is a huge problem there. I know I don't want to use the word privilege, because I'm not privileged. I know I in that ecosystem, I got certain kind of access, because the city where I was born, and because my family, to certain points, certain things that they could achieve, and because the education that I had at home. And certain people, they don't have that. But once they achieve a level through this colonial education, they just see as a way to engage with the white leftist in this paternalistic way. Yes,
Mhm, mhm,
public assistance, so the government, they have to give us access to things.
mhm,
Yes, and once these white leftists, they leave the government, we start everything again. It's always the same discussion. So come the white right wings
mhm,
government, and we have to fight against that, to bring again this white leftists or something like that. It's a circle and no end circle. And people, they don't understand that in the end of the day, you have some tokens there to speak about us, to control some departments from the government that just speak about
mhm,
racism, or people suffering discrimination at school. This is a discussion. But the point that we control resources about land, for example, about the production of food, about the security of the country. No, African people, when they get into the government, in this left government, they just have these positions where they also don't have any power. They cannot
Hmm.
discuss the points that we should have access to certain departments or ministry, what we say that, and we don't have. Yes, this is this discussion just around discrimination. Someone, I don't know, died because it was black, or this person couldn't go into this department or into this place because this person is black, and this is not the problem. Yes, because this is
What
what the chairman always say: if they don't like us, we shouldn't care about that. We want power. We want
power?
self-determination. Yes, this is power. The discussion about power.
What do you see that might be emerging that's positive? Like, there's a lot of like contradictions being a colonized person in these places. Is there any indication? I know you don't know the whole landscape of Brazil. Brazil's a huge country,
It's a huge country.
but
Yes, different
is
countries in a country.
I mean, is there any indication of an emergence of maybe somebody, Africans who are organizing for self-determination? So if you can talk a little bit more about that, that would be helpful.
Of course, there is some small groups. Yes, of course, they have no platform.
Yeah,
Of
yeah,
course
yeah.
not. Yes, I'm also engaged with them. They are young people. Yes, in their 20s or 30s, and they have a certain access also because they went through this process of this colonial universe and everything, and access to YouTube, for example, a platform like that they have some access to certain authors from the United States who speaks much more about self-determination, how to achieve that, and they create small groups at least to bring Africans together. I was with one guy last week. We were talking about African history, and he was we were talking about that, how difficult it is to bring people together, at least to understand, to start with the identity. We want
Mm,
self-determination, want power. We will have to come together, put our resources together, because people in the end of the day, they want the most of them, they want to participate into this in the system.
yep.
But it starts small. He told me their group, they have 70 people, and they
Mm,
really commemorate, they are on this level of to be Afrocentric. Yes,
mhm.
work a lot with children, what is very important. This is at least a level. Yes, they can
Yeah.
prove that. But to work with children, they are doing a huge and wonderful work with children, bring a lot of authors look into this way. Okay, self-determination, and this is the future with children, creating spaces where children, although we must, because we don't have the option to have homeschooling or something like that we don't
Mhm.
have, but if we start in small groups with children, we will able maybe in 2-3 generations to get where we should be there. Yes. Yes, this is what I see. Small groups, they don't connect because Brazil is huge, doing the
Yeah.
same thing, but interacting together, doing things in a small way because we don't have a resource for certain kind of things, but they are building, but they don't have the platform. Of course, no one knows. And they also take care about their own environment, because some people, when they don't have certain understand, they start to disturb and say, oh, you are divided, you are racist. This is what also African people, they use these terms, what you should
Oh,
do,
yeah.
you white people, or something like that. They are scared and they come to this point. Yes.
What is I think that it's really important what you're saying, because I mean I think our viewers are listening to this and like, yeah, yeah, we know all about that. That sounds so familiar to me. Yeah, these are things that we have to contend with, and some of the things that we had to contend with. We were Afrocentric back in the '90s. It was the new wave of Black powers back in the '90s. We had the Africa medallions, hip hop, and all these things that created a certain side, a kind of identity. What do you think? It's really important too to kind of look at the question of language too, which is something that, well, like you were saying, there's not enough information. The language, Africans in Brazil don't really have access to English in a broader sense, or any other language that may communicate certain things or advance ideas and theories that we've been, like African internationalism, for example. How important do you think getting access to that, or even communicating it in those languages, are for impacting and influencing the minds of Africans?
Oh, this is a topic that I think a lot about that, because I watched the Burn Spear and I read, and I'm in the process of the newspaper, how important it is, of course, translation. Yes, people, they have to know, to get in contact with that, so they will understand that we are separated through these nationalities or these borders created to disturb our minds, but we have to come together in a way to work together. And I really think, for example, an opportunity like that, to have, for example, once a month, I don't know, someone talking Portuguese, the topic that we discuss in English, that we speak in Portuguese, because people also, when they learn English, it's very because it's not so comfortable. It's much,
Right.
we can connect when we have someone speak our language, our slangs, and try. And we know, of course, me as an African born in Brazil, I know how people communicate, the way how I should speak with them, so they would understand and don't feel so aggressive. Because for them, for example, the African in Americans, they are somehow a little bit aggressive. So there is a way to bring the same, yes, topic using another kind of way and language. Yes, and it's a very important thing to have a platform like that with the same topic but discussing Portuguese and make this connection, because this is a very important point that you asked about, is to bring the African internationalism, this theory, use the examples that we have in Brazil. Not talking about the United States or what's happening, because they don't. We are not in the United States. They are divided. This is they no, and the ones who achieved a certain level of education, they are you have to, we must understand about our history. We should leave the United States because they are imperialistic. The Africans are, they want to control our minds. This is their their opinion. But if we have a person or a group, I don't know, once a month discussing that, okay, we have a problem, for example, right now, it's a problem right now about this flooding there in this area. So use this topic and bring African internationalism. You know why? And we come.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Breaking down until people see, yes, it's true, because they lose a lot of time. I know, because I follow the discussion. We have Big Brother is a, what's the name, reality show in Brazil,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
they bring Africans there, and there are a lot of discussion. But this is the way I visited my relatives, and they never spoke about colonialism or racism, yes, because they are very afraid. And they saw me and they started with this topic, and I thought, I don't want, and I was quiet. And I knew why they started with this conversation, because Big Brother, yes, because they
Mhm.
bring certain points. And this is what I thought, okay, it's an opportunity, for example, take this program and bring African internationalism. You know, it's not racism. It's because of that, it happens that. Use our own reality, that because people will understand. We consume our culture a lot.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so introduce, yes, the theory and everything connected with the things are happening there right now. Like the news, yes.
Talk about like the perception of African people. So you said, you mentioned it a couple times, the perception of the United States as imperialistic, and then the Africans there are divided, or here are divided, and that in Brazil in particular, that they are not interested in seeing uh, even they're not interested in comparing themselves to anything that's here because of imperialism. But the dichotomy you just said is just that they also bring the authors. So what's the general perception of African life and progress in the United States? Is it that we're sellout Africans, or that we have made progress, or that you're trying to be like us? Or what is it like? I want to be something separate. We cannot go on the same trajectory. So what's the general perception?
The general perception is that oh, America is everything. I mean, for people who have no idea about politics, yes, through music, through the culture that you spread around the world, yes, they are the people when they don't have any understand. The most of the people in Brazil, they don't leave Brazil, they don't visit other countries. African people even worse the situation because we don't have any visa. It's a very difficult process to go to the
Absolutely.
United States. So the information that we get, this is also how I grew up. For example, my education at home was very based on the struggles in the United States. For me to understand my identity, it was since when I was 6 years old because of my father. He loved the history about the Black Panthers on this level. Yes, so
Mhm.
I've always had this connection, and of course, consuming movies, yes, about race, about struggle. I saw myself, okay, they are like me. But of course, in a way, oh, this is what I want to achieve because the R&B singers, yes, everybody's beautiful, living a nice way. They are fighting, going to the streets, yes. And it's something that you think, okay, if I one day I achieve, it was my dream always to leave Brazil and to go to the United States. It was for me, oh my God, I want to be like my Black brothers and sisters there until I came to Europe. And this is the general idea. Yes, when people they don't leave, okay, they are the ones who, oh, they had a Black president, Obama. Yes, Barack Obama. They really arrived there. Yes, or these other folks who are on the government, like Condoleezza and everything. This is the way. Yeah, yeah. And the ones the ones who are trying to become the Black bourgeoisie, this is what they see. For example, when Kamala Harris became the vice president, for me it was the end, and I was not involved with African internationalism. I thought, no, no way. And people, Black women in Brazil, Black feminist women in Brazil, oh, this is what we should achieve: a Black woman at the government. This,
Yeah.
yes, yes. And once, and for me, I really understood the situation. The
Come on back. I'm gonna wheel her back. Come on. Oh, she's gonna come back in just a second.
And what I want to say, I really understood that everything that I saw on TV, how I grew up, it was not, it was a fake news. This is what I used to say when I was the first time in the United States, 2020.
Mhm.
I was first in San Francisco. I saw a lot of homeless. For me, it was something strange, but I didn't see a lot of Africans there because after I did my research, it's not a city where the African population is very low. Yes. And 2022, I went to New York the first time.
Yeah.
My first experience was in Brooklyn, what I love when I'm there. And there I felt home in the ghetto where I grew up or where my relatives live. I didn't see any difference. And I was very sad with things that I saw. For example, the projects that there are a lot of projects in Sao Paulo where this is the same thing. Africans living together in a terrible way. A lot of young men on the corner selling drugs are involved in that. A lot of liquor stores. Yes,
Mhm.
in these communities, this is how it is in Brazil. Uh, I'm not against religion, but a lot of church, every corner I saw, I didn't see supermarkets, but church
Yeah.
everywhere to control the minds of people to certain place. Homeless, people, the buses were full. Yes.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
used to say like the hell. I remember the time when I went to school in the ghetto where I grew up,
Mhm.
people having this kind of low paid jobs. And I was shocked because I thought, my God, it's not something that I saw on TV my whole life, that they, they have money, they are in a nice situation. And I remember calling my mother to speak with her about that. I thought, Mom, I'm like in Brazilian Garden. This is where my my relatives live. Yes, it's a
Mhm.
neighborhood there. The only difference that they speak English, but
Yeah.
sometimes I was, for me it was somehow strange because I thought, why they speak English? Because I felt home.
Right.
Because the situation was the same: degradation, no access to resource, living the worst. And I also, and for me it was the bad thing because I was always taking the bus to look and to understand the city. And I sometimes I ended in white neighborhoods, and I knew direct because I saw the streets,
Yeah.
trees, everything beautiful. And I thought, here I am in I have a neighborhood in São Paulo, Higienópolis. This is the same thing. You don't see
Mhm.
any African person, everything
Mhm.
clean, the buses are not
Mhm.
full. Yes, they are living their better life. So in the end of the day, I understood, no, it's a propaganda what the United States does. Yes, also
Yes.
selling a thing for us from the south, or for this poor colonized country where they are not poor, we know. But to, okay, oh, the United States, but once we are there, the reality is very, very sad and terrible. We understand what it means to be colonized within the country. I understood very well this topic because there is no difference. And I'm
Mhm.
sure this is my next top what I want to go. If I go to Colombia, my brother was in the Dominican Republic,
Mhm.
and
We're gonna will Sheila back. We're gonna say her connection gonna work. But drawing that same correlation between here we go. Glad. Go
yes,
ahead.
I was talking, for example, there is no difference. I want to go to Colombia maybe next year. And my brother, he was in the Dominican Republic last year, November. And our discussion is how live the blacks there. He told me, how do you think? How do you think? How do you think? And
Yeah.
he described the whole situation. This is what we face in Brazil or in around the world where we are as diaspora. Yes.
Why is it important to identify the situation as colonialism and not something against racism? Because the chairman says we're not trying to get people to like us. It's a power thing. But a lot of the fight that African people wage in Germany and the United States, everywhere, except for maybe Africa, where you don't have to have the racial
Yes.
situation. Um, it's about fighting racism, the racist thoughts. Um, what do you think? Why is it so important to talk about colonialism as opposed to racism? I mean, yeah.
It's important because we understand what is behind the politics. It's about resource, about controlling resources. Yes, and once we can control our resource, we will be able to be, I don't want to use the word equal, but if you have to fight back, we will be able for that. And it's because of that they leave us in this situation. We don't have access to our land. And I'm speaking also about the continent of Africa because we have a share there also, yes, to give our voice to be also in the government because this is our place, the place where we came from, and we also have to fight for that place because once we are there, take controlling our resources, we will be able to take care about our destiny. Yes, and it's
Mhm.
because of that they divide us, and once we don't understand what is behind the politics, it's not about racism, and this is also a distraction. Here in Europe, I can give an example. Here in Europe, it's a huge example. They start speaking about racism and how terrible it is, also these white leftists or something like that. And it's so interesting because they control the information. And also when we go to Google and Google racism, yes, and we will be on Wikipedia, what they describe there is racism means if you have a prejudice against people about from another race. They include themselves, the ones who create this yes, this theory is somehow that, and they include themselves. If you as an African person talk in this way, you are also racist, and it makes no sense. Yes, and this is the way how they twist the minds of people. People are scared to speak about certain kind of thing because they don't want to see to be racist. We cannot be racist. First off, the first point, we never created any theory, anything speaking about white people are in this way or in that way. Yes, we don't control their schools or something like that, lying about their history or something like that. We are not able, not in Europe, also not in the place where we are, to say you are not living this neighborhood, you are not having access for this or for that. We don't control the policies, education system, anything. How can we be racist? And this is the way how they try to twist us also with this word, because they use it's prejudice against people or group because their skin color or something like that. It makes no sense. Yes.
They call that reverse racism here.
Yeah,
Where
I don't use this word. I don't use this word. Really not.
reverse, they're like black people can't be racist. What are you talking about? We don't even have I mean, this what we have as black people is this informed information.
Hmm.
We have evidence of the treatment of ourselves and other people to say that white people behave like this, and therefore you can
Hmm.
expect this sort of behavior from them. So, it's like we like this is not prejudice, it's like this is evidence. Like that my response to saying I don't want my daughter to date no white man is because I already it's like it's not a racist response. It's they are not good. You know what I mean? And don't bring no colonizer into my house, sort of thing. You know what I mean? And that's the thing that reverse racism for people who want to. I think the African petty bourgeoisie mostly who are
Hmm.
afraid of that word of reverse racism because they don't want to talk badly about white people because white people are the people who control what they have. And if you talk bad about white people, then, they're going to stop giving you what they have. So,
Yes, their paycheck, and I really don't use it. It's a word that I really don't use. It's not in my vocabulary. When
right.
people say something, I also don't use anymore after the German white supremacy. This is what I used before.
Mhm.
But colonialism, because when we start to deal with this kind of words are very important because we define the word through words. Yes. When I speak about colonialism, they cannot deny anything anymore.
Right.
Can you?
Exactly.
They cannot.
Exactly.
They cannot. They cannot. They
Right.
cannot.
I'm glad you made that point. And Coco, we're going to bring up Coco in a few minutes to make some announcements, and then we're going to
Yeah.
get to Q&A. So get your questions ready or comments ready, y'all. But when you talk about, man, I just forgot it so quickly. But you talked about what the chairman said in terms of like a white supremacy, and that's a term that people use all the time. And I was just, and chairman's like, you shouldn't use that. You should use white power if you're going to use anything. And but the question of white power is associated with colonialism. And I think that's really important because you have people who in a negative way idealize white people. Like there
Hmm.
is supremacy of whiteness that goes along with the term white supremacy, and that's not true. Just like the chairman says that people they used to call white people white devils to make it seem like they're something other than a human being just like you and I
Hmm.
who that can be overturned through the process of making a revolution. And if we continue to use terms associated with whiteness to kind of make them supreme over us, or some sort of mythological creature that
Hmm.
that can't be that can't be destroyed through a practical process, it makes it really difficult to then frame what it is that we're talking about. But it's white power, and it's white power that's centered in the colonial question. And you deal with colonialism, you overturn the relationship that we have with the oppressor, you destroy white power.
Yes.
It might still have white supremacy because that's a mind thing, but the white power, the white power is something that you destroy through the
Of
process of
course,
destroying
of course.
colonialism.
It
You
was
know,
created and it can be destroyed. Yes, it's a human
absolutely,
thing. Yes, it's clear.
absolutely. So I'm going to bring up my comrade Coco. Coco, we're going to just allow you some time to do some announcements, and then we're going to come back with Q&A.
All right, awesome. So, as President Yejide mentioned, we are on our way to the Q&A section. So please prepare your questions. Remember, please share your name and location, and then your question. So I'm gonna go ahead and bring up our um, announcements now. All right. And first of all, if you enjoyed today's programming and have been inspired and motivated, I know I was motivated. Like, um, Sheila dropped some very good jewels in this whole conversation, and we call on you to join African Women Worldwide. To the African National Women's Organization. We are the only anti-colonial, anti-imperialist, revolutionary organization for Black women worldwide. We have members in Africa, Europe, Latin America, and all around the United States. ANWO is leading on everyday issues concerning African women. We're not just on the internet, we're on the ground in our communities organizing for African liberation. Join the international collective of African women building the revolutionary capacity of African women. To learn more about membership and to join, visit anwouhuru.org/join. Now, show your material solidarity with the work of the African National Women's Organization. Fund the Liberation Center of African Women by donating to ANWO today. Support the rehabilitation of historic St. Louis Black community. We are working on the international headquarters for African women, organizing the One Africa, One Nation market, flea market, and flea and farmers market in St. Louis, Missouri, to support African economic development and other events all over the country. ANWO is an organization of the African poor and working class, so we need your support to make these projects happen. If you can't become a member, consider becoming a sustaining donor. Don't wait until this program ends. Pledge your support now with donation levels starting at $5 a month, or renew your support today. We also accept one-time donations at any amount. So to donate at any time, visit anwoouhuru.org/donate. Wear your politics with ANWO. ANWO's shop features t-shirts, sweatshirts, travel bags, mugs, hoodies, and even socks. Profits for the merch sales support the campaigns of ANWO, including #ArrestCPS and the Huru Child and Family Collective, and also the War Council. Consider becoming a decolonizer and support ANWO's economic development project, Decolonize Hair and Body. Decolonize Hair and Body are natural personal care products that highlight ingredients and traditional care practices used by Indigenous people all around the world. In addition to featuring images and quotes of African revolutionaries, they are good. From our butters to our conditioners to our oils, Decolonize has you covered from head to toe. Make your next purchase of skincare products from us at decolonize.com. And if you're in the DC metro area, you can purchase from us in person. Hands off Uhuru, hands off Africa. The trial date has been set and the time is now. Support the Uhuru 3 and our fight against the U.S. indictments. Defend the African freedom struggle, defend the African liberation struggle, defend the Uhuru movement, and I would like to add, defend freedom of speech. To find out more and how you can support, go to handsoffuhuru.org. Now, if you also enjoyed today's programming, we'd like you to help us produce shows in 2024 by volunteering with us. And was looking for producers, interpreters, and chat moderators for future broadcasts. As Sheila mentioned, translating our literature in different languages is very important. So we're always looking for interpreters. So if you'd like to share your skills, email us at info@anwoouhuru.org to share your skills. And lastly, Harriet's Daughters Book Club and Study Group is a monthly virtual discussion that centers around African liberation-related literature. For the month of May, we will be finished discussing The War Before, the true life story of becoming a Black Panther, keeping the faith in prison, and fighting for those left behind by Safia Bakari. And our May selection, which is Women's Liberation and the African Freedom Struggle by Thomas Sankara. Next discussion will be next Sunday, May 26th at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Visit anwoouhuru.org/events to stay up to date of all upcoming international, national, regional, and local events and programs. Uhuru. Do we have any? I know I made some comments. Here. You want to bring up Sheila and Yejide? And Sheila, I'm a big fan of Brazilian TV. Okay?
Oh, nice.
It all started with City of Men. the movie
God, Seed of
City of
God.
God, the
Right.
movie, and then the TV show that came after. And I watched every single episode of the TV show at least 5 or 6 times, and then I watch Always a Witch Siempre, but it's in Spanish though, but it's Brazilian. Always a Witch. I watched that. That was really big. Also, one of my favorite shows that came out in the last few years was the 3%, which is a Brazilian show as well. I'm a big fan of Brazilian shows, especially Afro Brazilian, or have um, more diverse characters. So, we lost Sheila.
She'll be back.
Yeah. I
I
know,
thought
but every time she get to cooking. There she go. Every time she get to cooking, it would just freeze. I'm like, there gotta be the colonizer. There gotta be
It
the
can
American.
be the usual
Let's
suspects.
put
Yeah.
her on pause because she's dropping too much. I really enjoyed this conversation, and one of my comments was that the City of God. It was evident that Blackness was connected to poverty in Brazil. Like you didn't see Black people doing too much of anything else. You never knew how the people in the favelas supported themselves because it was only focused on, the gangs, the drugs, and the poverty, and then a love story in between.
Yeah, I think we don't have questions in this, which is odd because we got a nice little, cute little audience right now. And if you got questions for comments for Sheila, because she provided us a perspective of her life in Germany and just a general, I think a broader perspective of what it's like to be an African in Brazil. And I think generally speaking, what we do see on TV here in the US anyway is a reality of Brazil that's not like just carnival. Like
Right.
we do see the lives of Africans in various modes of life. We do see like the identity, like the mixed, race ideal that most Caribbean countries in the South America put forward as the type of African you can plan to see when you come here. But we also see, I watched a couple of movies that talked about children who were living in the slums, drugs, and all these other kinds of things and you also see the news about what's happening in Brazil too, when you can get it, about the social unrest and things like that, particularly when they were ousting the president and then another government came in and and took over. So I think generally speaking, we have an understanding, a general basic understanding, but I think what you provided was a more in detail thing, because when the African says, I'm going to go to Brazil, it's not going to
This
the
is what I
beach.
this is what I say. If you don't open your mouth, I have some friends in the United States, and they ask. I say, if you go there and you don't open your mouth, you be treated like average. What they use Negroes like. And once you open your mouth, okay, you get a little bit respect because the benefit of the U.S. passport. Yes. So, but if you don't open your mouth, you are.
Get it.
Yeah.
We get it.
I mean,
We
I
get it.
experienced that in other countries, but in a good way. I experienced that in Cuba, like it was kind of in a good way.
Yeah, she's saying that we get benefits because we speak English, but essentially, like, just normalizing the fact that Black people everywhere. When I went to Colombia, everybody was asking me where I was from. Because they didn't know where I was from until I spoke. Right,
Right.
when I spoke in Colombia, they was like, "What? Where are you from?" I was like, "The U.S." And they was like, "Oh, because I visited Cartagena, I visited Cali, and when I was in Cartagena, which was heavily policed. There was military all over down there. African men who were in Cartagena were thought to be drug dealers. You didn't see many African women who were visiting at the time that I went. And most of the African women were from Cali. They were up in Cartagena as prostitutes, servicing the Europeans that were at the hotels on the coast. So when myself and my daughter were in Cartagena, we weren't identified as anything other than what we were, Black women, Black girls, until I spoke, right? And then it was just like, okay, and then so I'm what you were saying, Sheila, was, resonates, because
Mhm.
when you go anywhere else, when I went to Africa, it was just like, we were dancing, we had to march through everything. We had to march, and the drums was always playing. And everywhere we procession, it was procession. And I was dancing with the march. It's like, ooh, your butt shakes like an African. I'm just like, 'cause I am. Like, you
Yes.
don't think, come on. I know how to do this, but in the
Yeah.
negative way, obviously, for Sheila, because it's a very oppressive state. You were saying that the African people are treated the same across the board in Brazil. And it's funny because, you know, with a majority African population, like you said, and no representation in government, even though I think that when you get representation in government, that still doesn't mean anything, because you're the African petty bourgeoisie. You go with the status quo. You're not trying to change
But we
conditions
don't
for Africa.
have yet, at least to say, okay, you see the
Right, cook.
Right. Soon as she cooking, like
That was
this
also
is
strange.
hot.
It's like the emergence of the African petty bourgeoisie didn't happen in Brazil in the same kind of way. And I think that's like really, I think that's a really interesting point that you said, Sheila, about the fact that there is no real organized African petty bourgeoisie.
no, and the discrepancy is huge. Once I was there now in March, where my mother lived, is a kind of, I don't want to see. It's on the border of a white neighborhood. Yes, she's in the black part, but it's if she walks 10 minutes, she will be on the white side. And normally, when we need to purchase things, to go to eat or to supermarkets, we have to go to this area,
Mm.
and it disturbs me. For example, when I go to certain place to eat, we were the only black persons eating in a normal bakery or something like that. You just see white folks, and where we can achieve certain foods or something like that. It's very, I see Brazil as a caste system, yes. And the black people, not black, I mean these mixed people, they were serving. This is clear. They were serving African people with
She broke up, but I have the
enjoying
book
their lives. And
She got
Caddy.
it. You said African, you said the
I,
African
I,
mixed race
mixed
Africans were
people, they
serving.
were serving, yes, and the
Mm.
African people with a darker complexion, they were cleaning. And you see that
Mm.
in all places where you go. And I went to another white neighborhood because I need to buy certain books that I wouldn't find, just found there. And when these gated communities, yes, we have a lot of gated communities
Mm,
there. And you see what I mean with Jim Crow segregation. What we don't have, it's not reading, but we have. They say, for example, you have some signs. If you are you are doing service jobs, you have to go through this entrance. And who is doing this kind of thing? Just black
yes.
people.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
You cannot use the same elevator like the folks who are living there. Yes,
Mhm,
this is the way
mhm.
how they play their roles. Yes, and we don't have any discrimination. No, my maid, she's a black person, and she's from a part of the family. We love her. This is how what they use. They used
Yeah. Oh,
to do
yeah. In
that.
the U.S., African people were a part of the family too, and that's why you
Yeah.
took care of the children while the
Right.
mother did something else.
Yes.
I think the emergence of the gated community is really interesting too, because we have a lot of gated communities here, and gated communities are usually where in the affluent parts of town, mostly where white people are. And when you
Mhm.
have a split in the social structure, where you have a lot of people who compartmentalize themselves, who have access, who have the things, but the majority of the population who don't, then you have to put up gates to block those people from coming into your community. And so when you see them, the gated community, you know that there's a
Hmm.
question of access to resources.
Yes, it's everywhere. In Brazil, it's clear. Gated communities, when you go there, we don't have a African gated community. At least in Georgia, you have some folks who live there. There, we don't have. We don't. We don't have. We
That's
don't
not
have.
how it started, but that's how it ended up, though.
Yeah.
With the quest of the petty bourgeoisie. I do
Yeah.
have a question about race relations in Germany and your experiences there. Especially with here, we have such a big thing with with the Palestinian situation, and it's bringing to a front this question of colonialism and our oppressors, and questioning Israeli, you know, Israelis experience as a, being the become the colonizer now, to the Palestinian versus being under the Nazi regime, like being a African person in Germany. What is the dynamics of that?
He passed. Sheila, we can hear you. Were you asking her in terms of like the relationship to the Nazi past? Or,
Yeah, the
okay.
Nazi past as a, as an African anti-colonialist, residing in Germany.
Also, if we speak about the current situation between Israel and Palestine, yes, so here in Germany, so it's a very, very difficult topic to discuss, yes, because their history. So there was a time when people start to go to the streets to protest in favor of the Palestinian people, also Germans. They were not allowed. The
Mm,
police was coming, they were passing laws, and for example, a person like me, if I decided to go to the streets to fight for the Palestinians, they will put me on a list like a neo-Nazi. It makes no
Mhm.
sense. Yes,
Mhm.
because I'm African person, I cannot be a neo-Nazi.
right.
Yes, and they are a partner. They are supporting Israel ideologically in everything with the
Mm,
United States. And people, when they are against, for example, I'm a German citizen and I cannot get involved in a certain kind of place because it's certain kind of talks, because they will expel me from the country if I would say
yeah.
I'm a pro-Palestinian and go to the streets. I lose my citizenship. This is the point where
Mm,
they are. Yes,
Mhm.
people are trying to go to the streets, but there are a lot of laws. They are passing laws. Of course, the Jewish community, they have a certain power here. They are financed here because their history is their stuff. But once you speak against oppression, because it's a part of oppression, you go to a list. You will have to have problem with the police or with the justice system. You'll be assigned almost like a neo-Nazi, what makes no sense.
mm.
And of course, the German people, they, although some of them, they are pro-Palestine, they also have to be very careful because of that. Yes.
What does that mean when somebody's assigned like a neo-Nazi? Because I don't think that we
Yeah,
have it in the nation.
okay, because for example, here, if you express yourself in the way that you support or mention or use certain kind of symbols that they can understand that it's about the spirit of the history, or that you are
Mm,
against Jewish people, you can go to the jail. You
Mhm.
also cannot
Yeah.
speak about certain kind of thing. And neo-Nazis are the groups. There are some parties here. They are against immigrants. Some of them, they are really on this path to get the country in the same way like it was in the past with this
mm,
Nazi system or something like that, what we call right wings, yes, in a deeper way. And once you are connecting an idea that they connect, okay, you and they speak about Jewish people here, it's a very, very dangerous thing, yes, because they
Yeah.
have a lot of power here in this country.
That's what happened when that's what happens with power, right? Once
right.
you get it, once you get it, you can control it. So people didn't have to like Jews per se as a religion or people, whatever. But they once you get power, then the question of whether you like me or not doesn't matter because you can control how people respond to that. And
Yeah.
what I think we should also say is that if we're talking about the Jews in Germany and resistance to the people wanting to protest against Palestine, we identify them as Zionists. So it's not like just a
Mhm,
general
correct.
blanket dislike of Jewish people. It's the Zionists who still reside in Germany who are preventing, who are in government now, is what you're saying, who are in government, who are the police, who are in the areas, who create law, who have power, who have money, who are passing these laws that are preventing people who are wanting to protest against them. And for example, could, expel you from the country for even talking about being on the side of Palestine. Um,
Yeah.
So
Yes,
then
it's
it's
very difficult. And once we express something, they also use this term anti-Semite, yes, something like
yeah.
that. They label you direct, and you are also afraid. What is that? You don't have any time to think about the word, what it means. We
Correct.
don't have hatred. We don't want to destroy their homes or to kill them. And we have to go into the etymology, yes, but they don't give us any time for that. You don't want to
Mhm.
be labeled like that, otherwise you get really problems here. And this is what means power and control. Yes, the voice, the mind, the narrative, and everything. You don't give any opportunity for a conversation, and
Mhm.
they tell here this is a democracy. So what kind of
Mhm.
democracy?
Yes.
We
I see
know.
the question, brother. I
We
see
know.
the question, Brother Sankofa. We're going to get to that because we got to wrap up very soon. But I just want to thank you, Sheila, because I'm sure people who are well traveled knows all about what's happening around the world and can. But I think it's really important as an African person, particularly with you living in such very different and having very different environments and social societies, but also having experience in living and working in the United States or just visiting the United States and just seeing that we can generally come to the same conclusion that colonialism is a problem. African people don't have power anywhere we are, that we're being managed by the oppressor, and until we overthrow our relationship to the oppressor, we're going to continue to see the same types of conditions, even on the continent of Africa. If we talk about the favelas in Brazil, the whole continent of Africa is a favela. The whole continent of
Yeah.
Africa is the ghetto. I mean, these are conditions that most of our people on the continent of Africa are experiencing is replicated in the poorest sectors of our country. And when I say our countries, I mean to say the countries that we were born into, and where African people who don't know anything other than what they've experienced are just, trudging through life. Just like if you were born an enslaved person, you don't know what freedom was look like. You don't know what it meant to come off a ship, but this is the life that you were born into, the life that you were groomed into. So I think that this question of racism is a really important one to tackle. The question of the African petty bourgeoisie. I'm just still shook at the fact that you're saying that the African petty bourgeoisie hasn't really emerged as the organized group in Brazil, and just what that historically what that looks like for the shaping of that for me. I'm like, I don't want the African petty bourgeoisie to emerge. I want the African working class to emerge in Brazil. And I think part of the question of having the African working class emerge for their own behalf is to really politicize the masses. And Brazil
Hmm.
has a huge mass to
Yeah,
politicize.
huge mass.
Right.
Yes.
But it can be done, and I think doing things like you were saying, speaking in Portuguese, and I'm even interested if we can do subtitles
Yes.
in Portuguese for this. I can go on Google Translate and translate the transcript, and I can send it to you, Sheila. And like, does this sound right
Hmm.
to you?
Yes.
Um, and then we just upload it into the thing. But um, to answer Sankofa's question, what is AMO doing in Ghana right now? We've never been in Ghana.
We've
Uh,
always
we we want to be. We've been in Africa. We are in Africa, but we are not in Ghana. And I think one of the things if you're still in Ghana, Brother Salih, one of the things that we really critical is the connection to African National Women's Organization that can be made between African women living on the continent, and also looking at some of the issues that African women in Ghana are experiencing and bringing them on. Because the way that we connect and build in those places is by connecting with African women who are in those places. We just don't go in and say we African National Women's. We here. We organize. The African women on the ground have to have a desire to organize and be a part of the revolutionary membership of the African National Women's Organization. So I'd be interested to know if you have any contacts and if there's somebody that we can reach out to on the continent that's really interested in making. Who can align with the African National Women's Organization's principles of unity, and who are also, really, able to, articulate the line of AMO. So, yeah, we'll do more. What this brother says in Philly, do more with AMO. We will do more with AMO when we make those connections. So I wanna actually wrap it up now. I want to thank Sister Sheila for a really great discussion. I think it was more like a lecture. I was just sitting back.
Thank you.
Right. It
Thank
was
you.
good. You know, I
Reading
was
one right now. Sheila had it. I was like, okay.
right. I mean, we definitely
Thank
need
you.
to discuss more and, you know, have some more webinars to, you know,
Absolutely.
tackle some of these things more specifically. So,
Absolutely.
especially caste system, because I got that book over here that I really want to read.
Great. So thank you everybody for tuning in to The Breakdown, which is a monthly live stream program from the African National Women's Organization. Please share with your contacts, and if you know anybody in Brazil who might like this conversation that can speak English until we can get the subtitles up, share it with
Yes.
them. And yeah, we'll talk soon, and we'll see you next month for our next program. Uhuru.
Right.
Uhuru.